In September last year, James Mallard appeared before Fulchester Magistrates Court on a charge of taking and driving away a motor vehicle without the consent of the owner or other lawful authority. The car in question belonged to Mallard's doctor, Dr. Qureshi. When he appeared before the magistrates, he pleaded guilty. The case was remanded for 14 days. When he appeared on the remanded date, he changed his mind. He pleaded not guilty, elected to go for trial, and reserved his defence. The case is now being heard before the Crown Court. The prosecution have alleged that Mallard, having quarrelled with his doctor, in a fit of temper, drove the doctor's car away.
I take this oath on the Crown, believing in the Crown as God's true word, believing in the true God above us, that whatsoever I tell this court will be the truth.
What is your full name?
Sajjad Qureshi.
And your occupation?
I am a registered medical practitioner.
Yes. And are you the owner of a Renault motor car, license number VND 445L?
I am.
What did you do with your motor car when you commenced evening surgery on the 13th of September?
I parked it near my surgery in Bruton Place. It wasn't exactly outside, as there were vans there, but I parked 60 yards away from the door, opposite to the dentist. I'm sorry to say I left the ignition keys in the car.
At what time was this?
Just before 5:30 p.m.
Yes. And when did you leave the surgery?
At about 7:30, I received an urgent call. The midwife was ringing me and saying there is a postpartum hemorrhage, very urgent. I ran to my car, but it wasn't there.
And what did you do then?
Oh, I telephoned the police.
And what happened subsequently?
Within minutes, Detective Sergeant Atras arrived. I told him my predicament I was in, and he ran me in his own car to the patient, who was very quickly admitted to hospital.
Yes, your immediate concern was with the patient.
Oh, yes, most urgent in postpartum hemorrhaging.
Now, do you know the accused, James Mallard?
Most definitely. He was on my list.
A patient?
Yes, my lord.
Did you see him on the evening of the 13th of September?
Yes, about 30 minutes before I went to look for my car, Mallard was in my surgery. He was extremely abusive to me, full of spite and malice.
Full of spite and malice. Why should he be spiteful to you?
He imagines he has a grievance against me, which really is quite ridiculous.
Perhaps you would elaborate.
Well, it's difficult to know where to begin. There is imagined grievance on several accounts. First, his family were all patients of mine, and his grandmother, recently deceased, was in severe pain for many months with terminal cancer. While I took what steps I could to alleviate her pain, it wasn't appreciated.
Did he say you should have done more for her?
He did, and for his widowed mother the same. The poor woman is a deaf mute, but I can do nothing.
Yes. So was that the reason for his being abusive to you in your surgery on the 13th of September?
That was himself. He's constantly demanding medical certificates. He has a back condition, which I said was imagined, or at any rate, I failed to diagnose anything wrong. I have caused tests to be made, and the orthopedic specialist at the hospital can find nothing. I told him it would be better if his whole family sought another doctor.
You did not want him on your list?
Not at all, nor his family.
Yes. And you told him this in your surgery on the evening of the 13th of September?
Yes, I said I was writing to the Executive Council asking the names of the whole family should be removed from my list.
And what did he say?
He gave me a mouthful of cheek and foul language and went out slamming the door.
Now, can you tell us exactly what he said before he slammed the door?
He said he owed me a few favors, and I wasn't to think I could come to this country and treat people like dirt.
Could you repeat that? He said he owed you something?
Yes, he said he owed me a few favors.
And what did you understand by that?
That he owed me some harm.
Yes. And one final question. What was the accused wearing when he was in your surgery on that evening?
A sports jacket and underneath dungarees.
You're quite sure that he wore dungarees?
Blue dungarees, yes.
Yes. I'm obliged. Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Qureshi, you said in your evidence in chief that you telephoned the police when you found out that your car was missing. But that isn't quite everything, is it? Is it not true, in fact, that you phoned Western Road Police Station and asked specifically for Detective Sergeant Atras?
Yes, I asked for Sergeant Atras.
Yes, you didn't just pick up the phone and say, my car's been stolen, can you help me? You asked specifically for Sergeant Atras.
Yes.
Now, why was that?
Sergeant Atras knew Mallard very well, as he had been involved with him before. He's a thoroughly bad lot.
Most unfortunate that you should have made that last statement. It cannot but prejudice the accused. I shall have no alternative but to discharge the jury and start a new trial.
My lord, it is my intention to admit the accused's previous convictions. The defendant wouldn't be where he is today if he had not previously been known both to Dr. Cressy and to the police as a person with previous convictions. The fact that Dr. Cressy thinks he's a thoroughly bad lot is, in fact, very pertinent.
I see. Very well, Mr. Parsons, if that is the way you intend to conduct the case, I'm sure you will do what is ever best for your client. I don't think I need start a new trial.
I'm obliged, my lord. So, Doctor, you asked specifically for Sergeant Atras, who is a friend of yours. Now, am I right in thinking that the first name mentioned when he came to your house was that of the accused?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said he was very rude to me prior to my car being stolen.
In fact, you suspected him of stealing it.
Yes.
And once in the car with Sergeant Atras, did you continue to speak about the accused?
Yes, and his family. I said I was removing them from my list.
Yes. And do you remember what Sergeant Atras was wearing when he came to see you?
No.
Not at all. Was he in uniform?
No.
Well, can you describe his clothes?
Not accurately. I see so many people in a day.
Well, perhaps I can help you. Was Sergeant Atras wearing a sports jacket?
I think a suit. I'm not sure.
How long were you with him altogether then?
About an hour.
So you were in his company for an hour, you sat beside him in the car, he accompanied you back to your house, and you can't remember what he wore?
I think it was a suit. I'm not sure.
Well, do you recall the colour of the suit?
I'm not sure.
But you were quite sure what James Mallard wore?
Blue dungarees.
Yes. What colour of tie was Mr. Mallard wearing that evening?
I'm not sure.
Well, can you describe his jacket?
It was an ordinary jacket, part of his suit, I think.
I see. Did you examine him?
No,
Why did he come to see you then?
to get a medical certificate.
Then you did not examine him.
I had examined him many times.
But you did not examine him on that occasion,
No,
even though he complained of pain.
I did not believe him.
Now, in the car, on the way to Hersham Crescent, did you state your opinion of the accused to Sergeant Atras?
I probably did.
Yes, well, did you or did you not, Doctor?
I did.
Yes. Did you tell Sergeant Atras he was a nuisance to you?
Yes.
Did you say that the district would be far better off if he didn't live in it?
Yes, this could be a very dangerous line of questioning, Mr. Parsons.
Yes, I am aware of that, my lord. I think the reason will become apparent in due course. Or perhaps I may phrase that question another way. Dr. Cressy, did you say to James Mallard that the district would be better off if he didn't live in it?
I may have said something like that, yes.
Yes, and you say that Sergeant Atras was in no doubt that you thought James Mallard a thoroughly bad lot.
No.
Now, in reply to my learned friend, you said that James Mallard wore a sports jacket over his blue dungarees.
Yes.
But in reply to me, you said it was an ordinary jacket, part of a suit, you thought. Now, which is it, Dr. Cressy?
I'm not sure.
You were very definite in reply to my learned friend. A sports jacket over blue dungarees, you said.
I'm only sure about blue dungarees.
I see. I don't want to make too much of it, but are we to take it that you're uncertain of whether he was wearing a sports jacket or not?
Yes.
When did you first mention the blue dungarees?
On the way to Hersham Crescent, Sergeant Atras asked what Mallard was wearing, and I told him.
I see. Yes. I'm obliged still.
Dr. Cressy, would you state once more the way in which Mallard left your surgery?
He slammed the door in a furious temper.
And would you tell us again what he said as he left?
He said, I owe you a few favors.
And what did you understand by that?
That he meant to do me harm.
Yes. And what trousers was he wearing?
Blue dungarees.
Blue dungarees. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cressy. I call Gwilym Urus Lewis.
Gwilym Urus Lewis, please.
Your full name is Gwilym Duress Lewis, and you are a registered dental practitioner with a surgery in Bruton Place.
Yes.
Now, were you in your surgery on the evening of Wednesday, the 13th of September?
Yes, I was. And I remember, first of all, that Dr. Qureshi couldn't park his car outside his surgery because there were commercial vehicles parked there. Then I saw him park outside my surgery. That is on the other side of the road. Now,
Where is your surgery?
It's up on the second floor, man. But I was looking down on the road.
Now, what did you see subsequently?
Well, I've been keeping an eye out for these van drivers, but you can never catch them. Anyway, later in the evening, I saw someone hanging about the parked cars.
And at what time was this?
Oh, about 7:15 p.m. You see, I hold a late surgery on a Wednesday, but I saw this man of about, medium height on the other side of the road. He walked up and down several times. Now, I cannot describe his face because it was turned from me, but he was wearing blue dungarees.
Now, you say you cannot describe the face of the man you just seen by the car.
No, I did not see it.
But you have no doubt that he was wearing blue dungarees.
Well, I suppose so, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Sergeant Atras, after your conversation with Dr. Qureshi, you went to the home of the accused, but he was not in.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps you would tell us what happened then.
His grandfather told me he wasn't there, sir.
His grandfather, that's Mr. John Ryan.
That's right, sir.
Did you notice something else at that time?
Yes, sir, I did. I thought I could smell something burning, like material or clothing, inside the house, sir.
And were you able to ascertain what was burning?
No, I was unable to get admission into the house, sir.
And what did you do next?
I'd already reported the theft of the car, sir, so I went off duty. I was off duty at about 10:30 p.m. when I saw the accused standing outside the Capitol Cinema in Princess Way. I approached him, I told him Dr. Qureshi's car was missing, and that I wanted to ask him some questions about his whereabouts that evening.
And what did he say?
He swore at me, sir.
Had you revealed the fact that you were a police officer?
No, my lord, but the accused knew me well enough.
Describe what happened next, Sergeant.
I told him that I knew that he and Dr. Qureshi had an argument that evening before the car disappeared, and asked him to accompany voluntarily to Western Road Police Station.
And what was his reaction?
He swore at me again, sir. I told him that his manner was offensive and cautioned him not to make any more obscene remarks.
And did he reply?
Yes, sir. He said he was not going to be booked on sus, and not going to have his collar felt every time I had a moody.
And what did you understand by that?
Well, he was alleging that I was trying to intimidate him, sir.
And what transpired?
At that moment, a uniformed constable, Constable Wilson, came on the scene, sir, and again I asked the accused to accompany me to the station. On the third occasion, he did.
And did he cooperate with you inside the police station?
Not at first, sir. I asked him as to his whereabouts that evening and if he would make a statement. At first he refused, so I asked him to think it over. He did, and then in the presence of Constable Bell and myself, he signed a statement, sir, after a formal caution.
And do you now produce the statement?
I do, sir.
Exhibit 1, my lord. Would you read it, please, Sergeant?
Sir. I, James Mellard, wish to make a statement. I've been told that I need not say anything unless I wish to do so, and whatever I say may be given in evidence. I did Qureshi's Reynolds. He's always leaving the keys in, and I owe him a few favours. I took it from outside his surgery in Bruton Place and ran it over to Pengham Moors. There wasn't much juice in it, so I left it there. It was just a spin to cool off. I wasn't going to nick it, just make that black bastard know that he couldn't push me around and get away with it. I've read the above statement and have been told that I can correct, alter, or add anything I wish. The statement is true, and I've made it of my own free will. James Mellard. I then cautioned and charged him with the offence, sir, and with driving without a valid licence, being uninsured, and being disqualified.
Yes, and what did he say?
He said, I knew he was going to throw the book at me. What will I get?
Finally, I understand that, in fact, the car was subsequently discovered undamaged.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Sergeant.
Sergeant Atras, you're an experienced police officer and well known in Fulchester.
Oh, I wouldn't say well-known, sir.
Well known to the accused.
No, I've met him on occasions before, sir.
Now, on what occasions have you met him previously? You can be quite frank, Sergeant. Is it not true that you arrested the accused previously when he was convicted of housebreaking and larceny and was sent for Borstal training?
Yes, sir.
And is it not also true that not long ago he was released from Borstal training and is likely to be sent back there or indeed sent to prison in the event of another conviction such as the one on which he now stands charged?
I expect so, sir.
Yes. And when you arrested him previously, whose house had he broken into?
Dr. Qureshi, sir.
Yes. And in fact, the accused has a record which includes housebreaking, larceny, and taking away and driving a vehicle without the owner's consent.
Yes, sir.
And you knew all this when you first went to Dr. Cresch's house.
Yes, sir.
Am I right in thinking that the first name mentioned by Dr. Cresci as a likely suspect was that of the accused?
Yes, sir.
In fact, Dr. Cresci had made up his mind that it was the accused had stolen his car, and he told you so.
No, sir. Dr. Cresci told me that the accused had left the surgery in a bad temper and owed him a grudge.
But at that time, you had no concrete evidence that it was Mr. Mallard.
No, but I felt I should proceed with my inquiries, sir.
Yes, well, they weren't very successful, were they?
Sir?
Huh? Well, I mean, presumably an expert examined this car, but there hasn't been so much as a fingerprint produced to prove that Mallard was in the car.
Well, the steering wheel and the door panel were examined, sir, by experts, but it was found to be wiped, sir.
How do you know they were wiped?
I should have said they were examined and found to have no trace of fingerprints at all, sir.
It is better, Sergeant. That is better. And how many occasions did you discuss with Dr. Cresci the disappearance of his car?
That evening, sir, and the following morning.
Mm-hmm. Who mentioned the dungarees first?
Dr. Cresci, sir. I asked him if he could remember what the accused was wearing at the time, and he said blue dungarees.
Yes, sir. When the dungarees were mentioned, Dr. Cresci didn't volunteer the information, but gave it in response to a question from you.
Well, now you mention it, sir, I think he volunteered it.
Now, Sergeant, did Dr. Cresci mention the dungarees when he first phoned up to say his car was missing?
No, sir.
But when did he mention them?
I'm not exactly sure, sir.
Well, let me take you back to the first interview with Dr. Cresci.
It wasn't an interview, sir. He just wanted a car, quick.
Yes. But on the way to Hersham Crescent, did you discuss Mallard?
Oh, I don't think so, sir. Not really. We were just concerned with getting to the patient.
Yes, but during the emergency drive, something must have been mentioned about Mallard.
Yes, Dr. Cresci told me that he left the surgery in a temper and that he owed him a few favours.
Yes, now, did the dungarees come up on the outward journey?
No, sir.
Well, were they mentioned on the return journey?
No, sir.
At what point did you first interview Mr. Lewis, the dentist?
The following morning, sir.
Quite sure it was the following morning.
It was the following morning, yes, sir.
Didn't see him that night.
Yes, sir. He was standing in the street when we got back from Hersham Crescent.
Yes, so you did see him on the night of the 13th.
Yes, sir.
But you just told us you didn't interview him until the following morning.
Well, I didn't interview him, sir. When we parked the car, he just poked his head through the window.
And what did he say?
Well, he mentioned this man loitering, sir.
And did he say what he wore, this loiterer?
Yes, sir. Blue dungarees.
And Dr. Cresci was sitting beside you at this moment.
Yes, sir.
So Dr. Cresci mentioned nothing about the blue dungarees until he first heard them mentioned by Mr. Lewis.
I'm not sure, sir. He probably did.
And when did he first mention them? You just told us he didn't bring them up either going to or coming back from this distressed patient.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, sir.
Well, I suggest you are, Sergeant, and from your evidence it is plain that the doctor has said nothing about the blue dungarees until he first heard Mr. Lewis mention this loiterer and say he wore such clothes. I mean, perhaps it wasn't until the following morning that Dr. Cresci first mentioned the dungarees, or even later still.
It could have been the following day, sir.
Yes, by which time the defendant was in custody.
Yes, sir.
Well, one thing is certain, Sergeant, isn't it? The accused was not wearing dungarees when you first saw him.
No, sir.
And you found no dungarees in his house.
No, sir. I was not allowed into the house.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to ask you some questions about the visit you paid to the accused's house earlier that evening. Why did you first go there in the first place?
To interview the accused, sir.
Yes, and when you found out he wasn't there, what did you do?
I asked his grandfather where he was.
Yes, that would be Mr. Ryan.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Ryan told you where he was, didn't he?
No, sir. He became abusive, sir. He tried to slam the door on my foot, and I restrained him.
And what did he say?
He accused me of never letting the boy alone, sir.
Not of never letting James Mallard alone?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say to that?
I said that I'd received a complaint and had some inquiries to make. He grew more abusive, and he attempted to strike me. In fact, he spat in my face.
Yes, and I believe subsequently Mr. Ryan was accused of assault at Fulton Magistrates' Court.
Yes, sir.
With what result?
The magistrates dismissed the charge, sir.
Yes, so you were unsuccessful in that attempt.
Oh, my lord.
Yes, Mr. Parsons, you know perfectly well the police officers do not regard prosecutions as personal battles to be won or lost.
Yes, I am aware of that, my lord, as a general rule, but I'd like to make it quite clear that I consider this to be a case of personal vendetta.
Oh, I see. Oh, I hadn't realized you were putting it as strongly as that. Well, I mustn't interfere, must I? Well, let's get on.
Thank you, my lord. Now, let us deal with your conversation with the accused grandfather. You didn't ask to look over the house, did you? You just put your foot over the threshold.
I did ask, sir.
You said to him, Jimmy's got itchy fingers again, and a little bird told you it was cars this time.
No, sir, I told him about Dr. Gresh's car.
Mr. Ryan told you the defendant had gone to the pictures.
No, sir.
You said that Creshy wasn't just any old wog, but was a mate of yours, and that if he didn't get the car back that night, you'd breathe very heavy on Jimmy.
I did not, sir.
And you said to Mr. Ryan, you're as much to blame for that boy going wrong as anybody.
No, sir.
You said I booked him 4 times as a juvenile, and he'll never do any good living here with you.
No, sir.
Did you not say to Mr. Ryan, you've all of you let his poor bloody mother a dance, but as you should be behind bars yourself?
No, sir.
I kept you in the stand all day. The answer would still be the same, wouldn't it?
Well, if it wasn't, I wouldn't be telling you the truth, would I, sir?
You've had your answer, Mr. Parsons.
And at the end of this exchange, you tried to gain entry into the house, and Mr. Ryan shut the door on your foot. There was a scuffle, and that gave rise to the charge of assault.
No, sir. He became abusive, he spat in my face, and I restrained him.
After you'd interviewed his grandfather, what did you do?
I went off duty, sir.
But you were looking for Mallard, even though you were off duty?
No, sir.
Well, where did you go?
I went for a stroll, sir.
You went for a stroll?
Yes, sir.
Without a thought of Mallard?
Well, not exactly, sir, but you see, when these young boys cut loose, it's good that they get picked up quickly. It's to their benefit, in case they get into more serious trouble.
Oh, so now you've adopted the role of welfare officer.
Sergeant Atras, you considered that a person at large who might have committed a minor offence was best apprehended in case he should commit a more serious offence.
Exactly so.
And I quite agree with you.
I'm obliged to your lordship.
Good.
But, Sergeant, at 10:25, you had no evidence that Mallard had committed even a minor offence.
I had my suspicions, sir.
Where did you first see him?
Outside the Capitol Cinema, sir.
Yes, you were keeping watch for him,
No, sir.
but you were at the cinema because that was where Mr. Ryan told you his grandson had gone.
No, sir.
Did you see his girlfriend?
No, sir, he was alone.
You mean he was alone when you saw him?
I mean, he was alone when I saw him, sir.
Yes, thank you. Now, what did he do when he saw you?
Nothing, sir.
Did not attempt to run?
No, sir.
He did not attempt to evade you in any way?
No, sir.
But if the prosecution is right, he had committed a crime and therefore should be in fear of the police.
Yes, sir.
But he did not run.
No, sir.
No. Now, how would you describe his manner before you spoke to him?
Well, he just stood there, silent, sir.
The case of the Queen against Mallard will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. James Mallard has pleaded not guilty to taking and driving away a motor vehicle without the consent of its owner. Yesterday, his defence counsel revealed that if Mallard is found guilty of this offence, he will probably be returned to Borstal or to prison. Defence counsel contend that Mallard would not have been apprehended for this offence were he not a person with previous convictions. Sergeant Atras, the arresting officer, was asked to describe the events that led to his confrontation with Mallard as he was leaving a local cinema.
Now, Sergeant Atras, you said that the defendant, James Mallard, just stood there silent.
Yes, sir.
How would you describe his manner after you spoke to him? 25, you had no evidence that James Mallard was in any way connected with the disappearance of Dr. Creshy's car, but at 10:30 he accompanied you to the police station.
Yes, sir.
Voluntarily, you say.
Yes, sir.
Now, what time did you arrive at the police station?
Approximately 10:45, sir.
Yes. And what time did he make the statement?
2 a.m., sir.
So at the end of 3 hours, you had a signed confession.
The accused made a signed statement of his own free will, sir, in the presence of myself and Constable Bell.
Yes, but the statement was only 7 lines long. How long did it take to write?
A few minutes, sir.
What, 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
And what was going on for the 3 hours that he was detained in the police station?
Well, I told you, sir. At first, the accused refused to help. I asked him to think it over, and he did. Then he made the statement.
What were you doing during those 3 hours? Intimidating him?
No, sir. I wasn't in the room at all. It was when I came back to the room he said he'd make a statement.
Yes. So he refused to answer any questions, you left him, and 3 hours later he volunteered a statement. The fact is, isn't it, that when you had him in the police station, you didn't even have enough evidence to arrest him. And yet at the end of 3 hours, over 3 hours, you had all the evidence you needed, didn't you?
Wasn't like that at all, sir.
Well, let me put it to you again. The accused went into the police station at 10:45 p.m., but it was not until 2 a.m. that you got your statement. Now, that's 3 hours. Now, did you interrogate him for the whole of those 3 hours?
No, sir. When we went into the interview room, I'd just begun to talk to him when I was called away. I was needed on another case.
Well, how long did that occupy you?
Oh, for 2 periods of about 30 minutes each, sir.
Well, that's 1 hour, so you were with the accused for 2 hours.
Yes, sir. But we were short-staffed at the station. I was needed on a third interrogation.
And when you repeated your accusation for the 4th time, did he make any reply?
Oh, yes, sir. He made a number of replies. He said it was a load of rubbish, that I was gunning for him, had nothing better to do on my night off, that finally I was bent and the biggest villain in Fulchester.
Now, Sergeant Atras, the word bent, that's a phrase used exclusively by criminals, is it not?
Oh, I wouldn't say that, sir. I use it myself.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's associated with criminal phraseology.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, in your evidence of what James Mallard is alleged to have said, there are a number of these phrases. I mean, in the statement, there is, I did crash his Renault, meaning I did the job. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then when you first saw him outside the cinema, James Mallard is supposed to have said, I'm not going to be booked on sus.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
It means arrested on suspicion, sir.
Yes, and I'm not having my collar felled. Can you help us there?
Yes, it's an old lags term, sir. It means hand on the collar, arrested.
A lags term, you said?
Yes.
Meaning a phrase normally used by criminals?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, when these expressions are recounted here in court, they cannot help but make an unfavorable impression.
Oh, I shouldn't think so, sir.
You said that all these expressions were used by James Mallard.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Entris, are you aware that James Mallard has passed an examination in the advanced use of the English language?
No, sir.
And are you aware that the reason he was released from Borstal training at the earliest possible moment is because his educational progress was excellent?
No, sir.
You see, I must put it to you, Sergeant, that James Mallard would use none of the expressions that you have attributed to him, but that you have invented them.
Not true, sir.
Does his grandfather use such expressions?
Well, yes, I mean, he's got...
Yes, what were you going to say, Sergeant?
No, I wouldn't like to say anything against him.
Oh, I'll be admitting his previous convictions. What were you going to say?
Well, he's got form as long as your arm.
Form as long as your arm? Well, you're certainly very acquainted with these expressions, Sergeant. Anyway, the jury will have the opportunity of hearing James Mallard and making up their own minds. Now, to return to this 3 hours when you had Mallard on your own, did you not say to him, with your record, it would be easier for you to cough now, meaning confess?
I did not, sir.
And before you were called away the first time, did you not say to him, if you don't cough, I shall have to lean on you, my old handsome?
No, sir.
But you do use the expression, my old handsome.
I do sometimes.
You do use the expression, lean on you.
I did not say that to the accused, sir.
The accused mother, did you know her?
No, sir. She's a deaf mute. She can't speak.
Yes, quite so, but you are well aware of the accused's special attachment to his mother.
No, sir.
You see, Sergeant, I must put it to you that the first time you left James Mallard alone in the interview room, you said to him, if you don't cough, I shall have to lean on you, my old handsome.
No, sir.
Then you left him for 20 minutes, and when you returned, you said, thought it over yet?
Yes, I did, sir, but that was when I returned.
Well, I suggest it was after only 20 minutes.
No, sir.
Mr. Mallard will tell us that you said you want to think hard, Sunshine. Is that true?
I may have said that, yes, sir.
You want to think hard, Sunshine, otherwise we shall have to have Mumsy down here doing a little bit with the fingers, won't we? That is what you said.
No, sir.
I suggest to you that knowing his mother was a deaf mute, you decided to bring her to the police station in order to embarrass her and to obtain a confession from the accused.
No, sir.
And from the moment you had spoken to your friend, Dr. Cressy, that you had decided that Mallard was guilty, hadn't you?
No, sir.
Come, you had no evidence that Mallard was guilty, so you talked him into making a statement.
I did not, sir.
In fact, one way or another, you intimidated him throughout the night.
No, sir.
What did you first say to him in the company of Constable Bell? Did you say, this one, Zize, he's got form as long as your arm?
No, sir.
Did you use the expression form as long as your arm? But do you or don't you, Sergeant?
Well, yes, I do sometimes,
Yes,
sir.
of course you do, because we've just heard you. Did you say, this one's easy?
Oh, no, sir. I wouldn't say that.
Why not?
Well, he's as cunning as a sack full of monkeys.
Sergeant, how long have you been a police officer?
24 years, sir.
Yes. And have you ever received any commendations in the course of your career?
Yes, sir. 7.
7. Thank you, Sergeant Atras.
Yes, you may leave the witness box, Sergeant.
Thank you, my lord.
That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
Yeah, my lord, I call James Mallard. And where were you at 6:30 in the evening of the 13th of September?
I went to see Dr. Cressy.
Yes. Now, will you please tell the jury why you went and what took place?
Well, I had a pain in my back for some months. I work as a roof tiler, you see, and I thought it was muscular, a
Yes.
pulled muscle. But every time I went to see Dr. Cressy, he could find nothing wrong. So on the 13th, I asked to go back to the hospital, as I'd done before. But he said they could find nothing wrong either.
Yes. And did the pain remain?
Yes, sir. I'm not fully conversant with the term, but I think it's a psychosomatic illness.
Yes. Now, Mr. Mallard, on the evening of the 13th of September, did you also ask Dr. Cressy for a medical certificate?
Yes, sir. I was in agony every time I turned my back.
And did he give it to you?
No, sir.
And what did you do as a consequence?
Well, I asked to be removed from his list, sir. I said that would go for the family and the neighbours on both sides as well.
Yes. Did you say anything else?
Yes, sir, I said we'd had enough of him. The whole street knew about his treatment towards my grandmother.
Yes.
He did nothing to relieve her pain for weeks, sir.
And did you wish to cause him harm?
Not harm, sir. Financial loss. I mean, I was in such pain. If I'd have had my way, he wouldn't have had a patient left in Fulchester.
Yes. Now, Dr. Cressy has told us that he was taking steps to remove you and your entire family from his list. Is that true?
He shouted that in the end, sir. But I'd already told him we couldn't put up with him any longer.
Yes. Now, what were you wearing that night?
Jeans and a sweater, sir.
Yes. And what colour were the jeans?
Red.
Now, what did you do when you left?
I had an appointment with my young lady outside the Capitol Cinema. I didn't feel like going, but, see, there was no way I could contact her. So I went. When I got there, she said it would take my mind off it. My back.
What would?
The picture.
Ah, yes. What was the film?
It was a rerun of Dr. Zhivago, a book by Pasternak.
Yes. Now, what time did you go into the cinema?
7:10, sir. We arrived during the adverts, just before the main feature.
Yes.
My lord, I must object. It is apparent that the accused is giving evidence of an alibi, but no alibi notice has been served by the defence on the prosecution.
Mr. Parsons?
That is so, my lord.
Well, then you cannot lead with this evidence.
With respect, my lord, I can.
How so?
Because my client wasn't given the alibi warning at the magistrate's court.
What? Yes, Mr. Golding.
Yes, I'm afraid that's true, my lord.
I see. Yes, well, proceed, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, my lord. And what time did you come out of the cinema?
About 10:30, sir.
Yes. Now, before we discuss what happened when you left the cinema, I'm bound to ask you why it is that your young lady is not coming to the court to tell us where you were that night.
I refused to let her, sir.
Now, why is that?
She's married, you see. If she came, it would all be out, you see. Her husband doesn't know I see her. She's terrified of him.
Why is she terrified of him?
He's threatened to hurt the child if she leaves him, sir.
I see. Now, you realize that if you are found guilty of this offence, that you may be sent back to Borstal, or indeed even to prison.
Yes, sir, but it wouldn't make any difference, would it? I mean, with my record, things couldn't be worse. I was sent to Borstal for burgling Cresh's house, and I had every reason to cause him harm. If she came here, no doubt the learned gentleman would remind her she has a conviction.
She has a conviction?
Yes, sir.
I take it you do not wish to disclose her name?
No, sir.
Shall we call her Miss X?
My lord.
Mrs. X, my lord.
Now, what happened when you both came out of the cinema?
Well, as soon as I saw Sergeant Actress, I told her to go back and wait in the foyer.
Well, why did you do that?
Well, he's a police officer, sir. He always stops me, and it's very embarrassing in front of other people.
Was your friend visible to him?
Well, he was watching people leave.
What, he was keeping watch for them, was he?
Yes, we were standing there watching people who came out. I told her to wait. I said if there was trouble, she should go home on her own. Yes. I said I'd keep him talking in case he'd seen her.
Did she have any reason to fear him?
Well, no, sir. But if he wanted to, he could use it to embarrass me.
In what way?
Well, his expressions are very crude, sir. I was with another girl once in the high street. He stopped me and he said, "Got your little bit of dick with you, have you, sunshine?"
Got your little bit of dick with you, sunshine? He said that to you in the presence of a young lady?
Yes, sir. There's one man in the witness box, another on the street corner.
Are you now saying that Sergeant Atlas intimidated you on a previous occasion?
Well, it's his manner, my lord. I mean, when one is with someone who doesn't know of one's difficulties, it can be embarrassing.
Well, that was the only reason you told your young lady to go back into the foyer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, 1 minute, Mr. Parsons. You said just now that when one is with someone who doesn't know one's difficulties, it can be embarrassing. Now, by difficulties, I take it you mean your record of previous convictions.
Well, not only convictions, my lord. I mean, other things. My family, for example.
Yes, but surely Miss X, I beg your pardon, Mrs. X, who, you say, herself had a conviction, must have known of your record.
Yes, sir, but he was quite likely to say anything. I mean, he's even said things about my mother before.
Your mother?
Yes, sir, but I'd rather not say.
Well, tell his lordship exactly what was said to you in the interview room.
Well, he said it's a sodding good job your old tart can't hear now, laughing boy. He's known for it, sir. I mean, he's even got a nickname in the force. They call him Charlie Chat.
Not take Dr. Crish's car.
No, sir. I didn't even know he had a Renault.
Why did you sign the statement?
I didn't want my mother brought down to the police station at that hour of the morning. She gets frightened, sir.
That was the sole reason?
No. At that time, I didn't think I had a chance anyway.
Now, can you tell us how these criminal expressions came to be in the statement?
It was dictated to me by Sergeant Actress.
I see. No further questions, my lord.
Mr. Mallard, my learned friend has pointed out to us that you've passed an examination in the use of the English language.
Yes, sir.
Was that for the use of your imagination as well?
Partly, sir.
And in the course of these proceedings, you've exercised your imagination still further. Mallard, you say you went to see Dr. Cressy because you suffered from a psychosomatic illness.
No, sir, I had a pain in my back.
But its origins were psychosomatic, you said.
Well, that's the only thing I could think of. I mean, none of the doctors could find anything wrong.
And what do you understand by the word psychosomatic?
Well, in this respect, a physiological pain of psychological origin, sir.
And what does physiological mean?
To do with the physique, flesh rather than thought. The opposite of psychological. I mean, I thought I might be suffering from a pain in my back because, well, I didn't like roof tiling, sir.
Do you think of yourself as being of a superior intelligence to Dr. Cressy?
Well, I wouldn't be indifferent to another's pain, sir.
Your pain?
And my grandmother's.
So you had good reason to dislike Dr. Cressy?
Yes, sir.
And Sergeant Actress as well?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You had, in fact, been arrested by Sergeant Actress while burgling Dr. Cressy's house 2 years ago, hadn't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And you knew Sergeant Actress well?
I wouldn't say well, sir. I mean, under the circumstances, I avoided him when I could.
Well, you knew, for example, that he used certain expressions like, my old sunshine.
Oh, he had many different expressions, sir.
Did you hear him say in court that he used the expression, my old sunshine?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And you knew that being an honest man, if he was challenged, that he would admit it. Well?
I don't agree with you, sir.
Don't agree with what?
That he's an honest man, sir.
He also admitted saying he used the word bent and the phrase form as long as your arm, as you knew he would, didn't you?
I'm afraid I've lost you this.
In fact, when you made the statement, you deliberately used words that you knew you could later retract in the hope of incriminating.
I'm not with you.
I'm putting it to you that from the moment you saw Sergeant Atras, you knew the game was up.
Oh, a game? It wasn't a game to me, sir, was it? My liberty was in jeopardy.
As soon as you saw him, you knew you had to cover up.
No, sir.
If he hadn't been tired and extremely busy, I suggest to you that you wouldn't have got away with it.
Oh, he's never tired, sir.
Oh, come now. As soon as you saw him, you gave your mind as to how best to outwit him, did you not?
No, sir.
Why did you not say there and then, I've got a girl there in the foyer?
I've already said he'd have embarrassed her.
Was it Mrs. X who was with you when the sergeant is alleged to have said, got your little bit of dick with you?
No, sir, it was another lady. I'm finished with her now.
Come now. Mrs. X is a figment of your imagination, isn't she? Somebody you've invented between your arrest and this trial.
She's real.
Well, you said Mrs. X had a conviction. What is it?
Oh, dear me, Mr. Golding, is that a proper question?
Well, my lord, I'm cross-examining as to this young man's credibility. I'm seeking to establish as to whether he knows what the conviction is or whether it's just a figment of his imagination.
I don't mind answering, my lord.
Then what was Mrs. X's conviction?
Prostitution, sir.
I see. And would a prostitute be too embarrassed to come to court on your behalf? Is that likely?
A prostitute is a human being, sir.
Well, she can't be very human if she won't come forward to stop you being sent away.
Wouldn't let her.
Well, if she's in fear for the child, why doesn't she leave her husband and come and live with you?
He would follow her.
Well, why doesn't she seek the help of the police?
Well, with her luck, she might get somebody like Actress.
His remarks might upset her?
Yes, sir.
She is a sensitive plant, then, this ex-prostitute. I suggest to you that she doesn't exist at all.
She does.
Well, what's in the future, then, for both of you?
She'll wait for me.
In spite of her husband?
Yes, sir.
And she's an expert at disguising her real feelings, I suppose.
As a matter of fact, she is, sir, yes.
As good at deceiving as you. In fact, an expert at it. You could go on all day, couldn't you?
What, sir?
Lying.
The reason I wouldn't have her here, sir, is because she'd be subjected to this.
Oh, forgive me, I thought you kept her away because of what Mr. X might do to the child. Which is it?
Well, that was the first thing. The other was that I knew no convicted person had the same chance, no matter what he said. It's no use, I said, they'll tear you to pieces.
Do you mean the courts are bent?
I don't use words like that, sir. I prefer to say prejudiced against certain classes.
My lord, I only have one question in re-examination. Mr. Mallard, you have told us you have been before the courts on 7 previous occasions. And on each of these occasions, you pleaded guilty. Now, on September the 13th, did you take and drive away Dr. Cresh's car?
No, sir, I did not.
Thank you, Mr. Mallard. Does your lordship have any further questions?
No.
I call John Ryan, my lord.
John Ryan, please.
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Now, Mr. Ryan, you are James Mallard's grandfather.
I am, sir, yes.
Will you tell the court what happened when Sergeant Atras came to visit you on the night of September the 13th?
Well, there was this knock on the door, sir, so I opened it and he stood there. I was very chatty as usual, with how's James getting along, sir, and all that. Very familiar he is, sir, yes.
Yes, what exactly did he say?
Well, he said, hello, Johnny boy, how's me old handsome then? And he refers to James as laughing boy, sir.
Did he say why he'd come?
Oh, not at first, sir, he never does. I told him I didn't want nothing to do with him. Then he says that he's heard that Jimmy had got itchy fingers again.
What did you say?
I said, rubbish, sir. Lad's turned over an entirely new leaf. He swore to his gran on her deathbed that he'd never thieve nothing against her.
Yes, and what did Sergeant Atras say?
Oh, he said that a little bird had told him it was cars this time, sir.
The little bird had told him that James was stealing cars.
Yes, sir.
Now, what happened then?
Well, he put his foot in the door, sir, as though he wanted to have a good look round inside, but I wasn't having none of that, sir.
Yes. Did you tell him anything about James?
Yeah, I said he was at the picture, sir. But he wouldn't take no for an answer, so I shut the door on his foot, sir, and we had a bit of a to-do, sir.
Yes, and you were subsequently charged with assaulting Sergeant Atras.
Yes, I was.
With what result?
Well, no case to answer, sir. Dismissed. By rights, it was him that was doing the assaulting.
Yes. Now, did Sergeant Atras mention anything else about a car or cars?
Well, yes, he said that Qureshi wasn't just any old wog, he was a mate of his. And if he didn't get his car back that night, well, he'd come and breathe very heavy on Jimmy's.
Yes, can we just have that again? He said that Qureshi wasn't just any old wog, but was a mate of his.
Yes, sir.
And that if he didn't get his car back that night, he, that is Sergeant Atras, would lean very heavy on Jimmy.
Yes, sir, yes.
Now, what did you understand by that?
Well, that he'd take him down the station and turn him over, sir.
What, do you mean he'd offer him physical violence?
Oh, no, sir, no, nothing like that. He's much too clever for that, sir. No, that's just his talk, sir.
But how can you put pressure on someone just by talking?
Well, he goes nattering on and on and on. You'd think he was your best mate, sir. You know, he sort of never lets up. I don't quite know how to explain it, but he puts words in your mouth, sir.
Words in your mouth?
Yes.
Yes. Now, I understand a scene followed your attempt to close the door. What did Sergeant Atras say to you then?
Well, he said I was to blame, sir.
For what?
Well, for Jimmy going wrong, sir. He said he'd pinched him as a nipper, and that I should be behind bars, sir. And as he'd pinched him as a nipper, as it goes on, like he wouldn't do no good while he was living with me, sir.
Was there any truth in that suggestion?
Oh, yes, I suppose, my lord. I've never been anything to anybody in my life, really, sir.
Now, would it surprise you to learn that Sergeant Atras has emphatically denied making either of those statements?
Oh, I'm not surprised, sir. The way he talks, it's a wonder that he remembers half of what he does say himself, sir.
Yes, thank you. Oh, was there anything burning on the fire the night that Sergeant Atras was at the door?
Burning? Oh, yes, there was a dishcloth. It fell off the range onto the coals, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. No further questions, my lord.
Mr. Ryan, you realize that you are suggesting that a police officer with an unblemished record is lying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Me and Jimmy both, sir. If he can put anything on us, he will, sir. He wouldn't have come up to the house unless he knew he could say anything he liked, and if anything come of it, we wouldn't be believed.
And you are convinced that is the truth?
Yes, sir. The flat truth, my lord.
The case of the Queen against Mallard will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. James Mallard has pleaded not guilty to taking and driving away a motor car without the consent of its owner, Dr. Qureshi, his general practitioner. Mallard confessed to the crime after having been questioned in Western Road Police Station for 3 hours, but subsequently withdrew his confession, which, he says, was dictated to him by Sergeant Atras. Now the defence is calling evidence in support of his claim that Sergeant Atras puts words into people's mouths. Mallard says he was with his girlfriend when the car was taken, but the girlfriend has not come forward, and the prosecution say that she doesn't exist at all, except in Mallard's imagination. His grandfather, John Ryan, has made allegations of Sergeant Atras's improper conduct, but he has not yet been cross-examined by the prosecution.
Ryan, you've made a number of statements about Sergeant Atras. How is it you know him so well?
Oh, I've known him for a number of years.
In what capacity?
Well, he arrested our Jimmy, sir.
Have you had any other connection with him?
Oh, yes, he's arrested me too, sir.
Is it true that you have a number of previous convictions for dishonesty?
Yes, sir.
How many?
Well, I can't remember exactly, sir.
You can't remember exactly.
No, sir.
Have you ever received a prison sentence?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Perhaps you are conversant with criminal expressions. Can you tell us what booked for sus means?
Well, arrested on suspicion, sir.
And what does feel your collar mean?
Well, a hand on your coat collar, sir.
Does that usually mean a policeman's hand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And do you usually use these expressions at home? I mean, if you were sitting down to supper, would you pick up an evening paper and say, I see old so-and-so's got done for sus?
Oh, I might do so, yes.
Yes. And if the accused was sitting at the table, he would understand what you meant?
No, sir.
He wouldn't understand?
No, sir. You see, he doesn't follow me, sir. He's been away a lot. He's very bookish, sir. He's ashamed of the way I speak and doesn't choose to follow me, sir.
But he understands what you say.
Well, partly, sir.
Partly. When it suits his convenience, I suppose. The fact is it not, that you and the accused are fully conversant with criminal expressions?
Well, I am, sir, but he doesn't choose to follow me.
And what about his girlfriend? Have you ever seen her?
No, sir.
Has anybody ever seen her?
Well, Jimmy must have, sir, because he spibbed himself up every time he took her out, sir.
Then why isn't she here to give her evidence?
I don't know, sir. I could wring her neck for that, I could, sir.
Have you ever discussed her with him?
Oh, yes, in a general sort of way.
Now, what did you talk about?
Well, personally, I wanted to see him married and settled down, sir.
Is that what you advised him?
Yes, sir, in a general sort of way.
And what did he say?
Well, he agreed, sir.
Have you talked about this on one or two occasions?
Yes, sir, several times. It's been on his mind, like, sir.
Did he mention any difficulties?
Well, she is married, sir.
And did you discuss this, her being married?
Well, yes, sir.
And what did you say?
Well, it was him that did most of the talking, sir, and I did say that, well, it was his business, really.
Quite. So, you had a discussion on several occasions with James about his getting married, and you're wanting him to settle down, and you advised him gently.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In that case, can you tell us what her name is?
Her name, sir? I don't recall, sir.
No, I didn't think you would. Is not this whole story about his girlfriend a pack of lies from start to finish?
No, sir.
Then what's her name?
Well, I just...
You had 3 separate conversations, and you gave advice in a general way, you said.
Yes.
Now, to whom did you refer?
Well, her, sir. He didn't mention her name much, sir.
But he must have called her something.
Oh, yes, sir. I just remember, sir.
Yet you remember every detail of what Sergeant Atras is alleged to have said, but the name of your prospective granddaughter-in-law remains a mystery.
Well, sir, there was a name mentioned. I can't just rather slip me tongue, sir. I think it was, yes, it began with a J, I think, sir. Sort of Jane or Janet.
What was James wearing on the morning of the 13th of September when he went out to work?
Working clothes, a woolen sweater and trousers.
What colour were the trousers?
Red.
Now, did he come home that evening before he went to the doctor?
No.
No. Did James have a girlfriend?
Yes, lots of different ones.
Ask her if she has ever seen the accused's present woman friend in the flesh.
My lord!
Sit down.
My lord!
Be silent.
My lord, I'm not having my mother go through this. I wish to change my plea.
Be still! You must not communicate with the witness in any way whatsoever. And that woman, tell her to be still. Silence that woman. Shield her from the prisoner. Mallard, you said that you wish to change your plea. Do you realize what you are saying and the inevitable consequence for you of such a change of plea?
I do, my lord. I will not have my mother...
I am not referring to your mother.
I want to change my plea, my lord.
Very well. I will adjourn to give you the opportunity of discussing the matter with your counsel, and you will be well advised to listen to what he has to say. But, before we adjourn, something was communicated from your mother to you. Well, this is quite extraordinary, and it cannot be allowed, and I must know what she communicated. Can anyone help me?
But if I may be of assistance, my lord.
We are very much dependent on you, Mr. Interpreter. If you would please write it down. It may well be something that the jury should not hear. Thank you. You promised to tell the truth. Well, however pertinent that observation may be, please tell the witness that she must not communicate with her son in any way whatsoever. Please do that now. I have never experienced anything like this.
All stand.
My lord, I wish to apologize on behalf of my client for his intervention. He wishes me to state that he was most upset at seeing his mother here in the courtroom.
Yes, but surely he must have realized that she would be called and cross-examined.
Yes, indeed, my lord. However, I've had a conversation with him, and I'm instructed to say that his plea of not guilty should stand. However, in the circumstances, I have no further questions of this witness.
Very well. Mallard, I take it then you do not wish to change your plea?
Yes, my lord. I apologise.
Now, you must realize that if your mother is called to give evidence on your behalf, her statements cannot rest there. I must allow counsel for the prosecution to put to her whatever questions he may think are relevant. Now, has this been explained to you?
Yes, my lord. Thank you.
And you understand that you must make no visual communication with your mother of any kind whatsoever?
Yes, my lord.
Very well. Mr. Golding.
I'll be as brief as I can, my
You
lord.
need not limit yourself in any way.
I understand, my lord. Mrs. Mallard, what did James wear when he went to meet his girlfriends?
His best new suit.
Yes, and what did he wear on the night he was arrested?
I think it must have been his working clothes.
Yes, and have you ever seen your son's present girlfriend?
He won't bring any girl to the house, and he is too ashamed because I am deaf and dumb.
Yes, yes. Has she anything more to say which may be of help to the court?
He's told me about one girl, but she's already married.
Yes, I see. Thank you.
Yes, I've no further questions, my
Yes,
lord.
Mrs. Mallard is released.
My lord, the last witness for the defense is Mr. Jack Smith.
Jack Smith, please.
Now, Mr. Smith, you are being detained at Western Road Police Station on the night of the 13th. Now, why was that?
A quantity of stolen ingots was found in my scrapyard, and I suspected of receiving them.
Yes, so was the prosecution brought against you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, but I was cleared.
Yes. Now, do you know the accused?
Only by sight, sir.
Yes, will you please tell the court the circumstances in which you first saw him?
Well, I was standing by the charge desk in the Western Road Police Station when he was brought in by Sergeant Atras.
Yes, did Sergeant Atras say anything to you?
Yes, sir. He said, well, first of all, he said, hello, 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 all the birds are coming home to roost tonight.
Then what did you understand by that?
Well, we've been in trouble with him before, sir. You know, been arrested by him. He was very chatty. He said, here, if I get any more of mine in tonight, I shall have to buy him ties.
Well, can you explain that?
Well, we was like a club, you know, people he'd arrested before. He said, what, 3 in one night? Blimey, must be a record.
Yes, I see. Did you hear him say anything to the accused?
Yes, sir. He kept coming in and out his cell. You see, he had another case on besides me and the accused. Well, he come in about 2 o'clock, big smile on his face. He said, well, boys, I've got 1 down and 2 to carry.
What did you understand by that?
Well, the accused had made a statement, sir. But me and the other fella hadn't.
Did he say anything about how the accused's statement was obtained?
Yes, sir. He said they always cough in the end just to put me out my misery. I said, no, it's just to shut you up.
Why did they always cough, Mr. Smith?
Well, he goes on and on, doesn't he? He wears you down until he puts the words in your mouth. Yes.
Ah, thank you, Mr. Smith. I have no further questions, madam.
Yeah. Mr. Smith, did you make a statement to Sergeant Atras in connection with the offence with which you were subsequently charged?
No, my lord, not me.
Well, didn't you protest your innocence at all?
Oh, yes, my lord, but nothing else.
Oh, I see. I'm sure you were very helpful.
Now, you're not putting yourself forward as a witness of good character, are you, Mr. Smith?
My lord, he's not putting himself forward as anything.
Yes, I'm sure you can phrase your questions to deal with previous convictions in a more straightforward way, Mr. Golding.
Very well, my lord. Mr. Smith, how many previous convictions have you?
3, sir.
Will you tell us what they are?
Receiving goods, metals, etc., known them to be stolen.
What do you mean by etc.?
Various goods, my lord. Here, first was one lot, and then there was...
Yes. You mean they were 3 separate cases of dishonesty?
Yeah, that's right, your lordship.
My lord, members of the jury, James Mallard went to Dr. Creshy's surgery and quarrelled with him. Now, having quarrelled with him, in a fit of temper, he drove away his motor car, and when subsequently apprehended, he confessed. Now, those are the facts, members of the jury. Now, we know that a person of his build, wearing blue dungarees, was seen near the car. And you will remember that his mother has told us that while he normally wore his best clothes when visiting his girlfriends, on this occasion, he wore his working clothes. Now, these dungarees have not been produced, and the accused denies ever having them. But you've heard that one of the reasons Sergeant Atras was so anxious to get into the house that night was that he smelt what he took to be burning clothes, and that this increased his suspicions even more. We are now told in court that a dishcloth had fallen on the fire. As cunning as a hatful of monkeys, Sergeant Atras has described Mallard, and that is what the prosecution say. Consider the allegations he has made against Sergeant Atras. They are concoctions, part true, but part false, made in order to embarrass him here, in this court, by a person who well knows the cause. Now, they are cunning in the way that they contain expressions actually used by Sergeant Atras, and to which he has freely admitted. Sergeant Atras did say, "You do well to think it over, my old handsome." He did say, "You want to think hard, sunshine." And he has told us that he said these things. But what he did not say, and you may well think this is the wickedest lie of all, was, "You want to think hard, sunshine, otherwise we shall have to have Mumsy down here doing her little bit with the fingers." Now, if the sergeant said that, of course, then the statement would be inadmissible, as the accused well knows. Now, that is the first bit of fiction. And make no mistake, members of the jury, it is fiction we are dealing with. Of course, it is freely admitted that a detective inspector of 24 years' experience in the interrogation of persons is more skilled in the interrogation of suspected persons than an officer of 1 year's experience. But there is a difference between skilled interrogation and the putting of words into the mouths of suspected persons, as the accused contends. Now, on the accused part, we have a total denial of everything except his hostility towards Dr. Creshy. In addition, we have a second amazing piece of fiction. I refer, of course, to the evidently nameless prostitute with the heart of gold, who will not come forward because either she or the child is in fear of violence from a deceived husband, and who also, poor woman, cannot go to the police for help in case she gets Sergeant Atras. No one has actually seen her, and despite her conviction for prostitution, she is also likely to be embarrassed in case Sergeant Atras should make remarks of a sexual nature which might offend her. How cleverly are these allegations strung together, members of the jury. Now, as for the male witnesses, 2 of them have 27 previous convictions between them, and they have nothing material to say except to make further attacks on the character of Sergeant Atras. In short, members of the jury, you have been subjected to a tissue of lies, and the most hypocritical act was the accused's attempt to change his plea in front of you. Another carefully conceived piece of fiction. Where has his concern for his mother been in the past, you may well ask. As for the accused being ignorant of criminal expressions, did you hear his grandfather? Can you imagine them sitting down to tea? Is it conceivable that all they have to say to each other is to talk about the accused's psychosomatic pains? No, members of the jury, what you've seen from James Mallard in the stand is a studious act of deception from a self-possessed young man, very unlikely to be intimidated. I suggest that after all the evidence, your verdict should be one of guilty.
Very pleased, Your Lordship. Members of the jury, my learned friend has reminded you in his closing speech that you are in fact dealing with fictions. Of course, he's absolutely right. But what you have to decide is who is making up these fictions. Now let us consider the fiction, first of all, of Mr. Mallard's alleged statement. Now, an accused person's statement must be made without duress, that is, without threat or promise. But, as Sergeant Atras says, we shall have to have Mumsy down here doing a little bit with the fingers, that is duress, because it contains a threat. And you must remember that this threat was made at 2 a.m. in the morning. The accused had been in the police station since 10:45 the previous night. He had been subjected to Sergeant Atras's constant haranguing. He was suffering from severe back pains, and now his mother, a deaf mute, was to be brought from her bed to testify in the police station. It's no wonder that he capitulated and signed the sergeant's 7-line literary masterpiece. Of course, the sergeant claims that James Mallard was left alone from 10:45 until 2 a.m., then simply wrote out and signed his own statement. But first of all, can you imagine Sergeant Atras, who, remember, went off duty before 10:30, busying himself around the station with 2 other cases and leaving his prisoner alone for over 3 hours just to think about it? And secondly, members of the jury, you have heard the statement read out, and you have heard Sergeant Atras and James Mallard give their evidence. Now, whose voice speaks to you from that statement? I suggest it is the voice of Sergeant Atras. If it is the voice of James Mallard, as the prosecution suggests, then the well-spoken, articulate James Mallard you have been watching and listening to for the past 3 days must be a characterization, worked up to delude you. And if that is the case, then not only is he as cunning as a hatful of monkeys, but he is also the best actor it has been my privilege to behold. Now, I cannot leave Sergeant Atras without bringing to your attention one more remarkable fact he has asked us all to believe. He says in open court that Mr. Ryan, the accused grandfather, did not tell him that James Mallard had gone to the cinema, but that being off duty, he just went for a stroll and just happened to see James Mallard outside the Capitol Cinema. I ask you, members of the jury, just how gullible does this gentleman think we all are? My learned friend has made much moment of the fact that 3 witnesses have testified about Sergeant Atras's behavior, and that all 3 of them have previous criminal records. Now, none of this is denied. Of course, it would be better for our case if we had a justice of the peace and a prominent Fulchester businessman to testify on behalf of the accused. But such persons as this are not at risk in the same way that James Mallard is. And not many of them are to be found at 2 a.m. in Western Road Police Station. But because a person has a previous conviction, it does not mean that he will never tell the truth again, ever. We say that if James Mallard did not have a previous conviction, he would not be accused of such flimsy evidence. Now, you can be sure that there was no time spared in achieving more substantial evidence, but none was obtained. And there's no evidence. No one saw him take away the car. No one saw him step into the car. No one saw him step out of the car. No one saw him drive away the car. Nothing. All the prosecution have offered is a 7-line statement made after 3 hours detention in Western Road Police Station. And as to identification, all they have to offer is a pair of blue dungarees. Now, identification going wrong is probably the most frequent cause of people being sent to prison wrongly. But to identify someone on a pair of trousers is, to my mind, a staggeringly risky business. Now, even if James Mallard had been wearing blue dungarees, which he denies, how many more young men were wearing such apparel in Fulchester on the night of September the 13th? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, after much pain and provocation, James Mallard has stuck to his plea of not guilty. He has shown great courage in presenting himself before you in the hope that justice will be done. I hope that each of you show a similar courage in keeping an open mind and bringing back a verdict of not guilty.
Therefore, you have a straightforward conflict of evidence between an experienced and much commended police officer and the accused, who has admitted a record of previous convictions. Now, I would remind you that it is no part of your function to criticize how a detective officer speaks, or is alleged to have spoken. Indeed, you may think that several of the statements attributed to Sergeant Atras were immaterial, even if they were true. The prosecution say that the accused, cleverly and deliberately, determined to pervert the course of justice the moment he saw the police officer. The defense say that he is the victim of a police officer's malice. The prosecution say that the accused woman friend, who could have come forward to give material evidence on his behalf, doesn't exist at all. The defense say that she, an ex-prostitute, was in fear of the court and for the well-being of her child. Now, as to Mallard's written statement, his confession, it is alleged that he made this statement by reason of a threat in order to avoid embarrassment for his mother. Now, if you think that he made this statement for the reasons he has given, and therefore that this statement is untrue, then there is no evidence upon which you can convict him. You've seen the accused, for his age, an experienced criminal, and you will have formed an assessment of his character. He's not a weak, frightened youth, and you will be entitled to ask yourselves whether he is such a sensitive plant that he would jeopardize his liberty in order to avoid embarrassment for his mother and his woman friend. Now remember, the prosecution, as always, must prove their case beyond reasonable doubt. And if you are satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that the accused took away that motor car without the owner's consent, then you must find him guilty. If you are not so satisfied, if you have a reasonable doubt, then you will find him not guilty.
Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the accused guilty or not guilty of taking and driving away a motor vehicle without the consent of the owner or other lawful authority?
Not guilty.
Set him free.
A chance for you to join another jury in assessing the facts when our cameras return to watch a leading case in the Crown Court.